Okay, I'm going to answer two of the three, but I'm also going to just make a comment following from Manny about obesity. I just want to point out obesity is not just an issue of affluence. There's a recent article in The Lancet that put out a very, I think, a very clear way of looking at it. Overweight or underheight was the question that they asked. If you try to gain weight on a stunted frame, and a stunted frame reflects the first 2 years plus the prenatal condition of the child. If you try to gain weight on that frame, you run a risk of obesity. And let me just point out, India has the greatest number of diabetics in the world. And there is clinical evidence that part of the problem trying to gain weight after being malnourished leads to that. So it's not. It also is affluence, but it's not just affluence. Now, as far as the question, it's a larger issue than this forum is set up for about agriculture and nutrition. So I really don't want to go into very far, but part of the issue is diet diversity. And it's been raised since the beginning of the Green Revolution about the relative prices of pulses, but it's more than pulses. It's the seasonality of access to vegetables. It's who can afford milk and the milk marketing chains. There are many other issues of diet diversity. As I said, it's not the place to discuss all those issues, but it's not just calorie availability. So let's just leave it at that for this group. As far as I didn't read Christoph's article. I'm going to look it up later. But there are a lot of issues that are posed on the fact that India does have very, very high malnutrition relative to its income. And part of the issue, I think, is very convincing, the area about sanitation. How much of the share that is due to sanitation? I think it'll be a while till we can isolate that. It's also the fact that some of the issues will take generations just because small women have small children. And Indian women are in general small, very low BMI, body mass indices. It's not just eating down during pregnancy. It's the preconception. It's the iron and folic acid that a woman has prior to conception. It's the iron that she has during pregnancy. It's not just the eating down issues, but there are a lot of factors that contribute to the fact that low birth weight. India may have the highest rate of low birth weight in the world, or one of the very highest. Part of it has to do with the stature from the last generation. Part of it has to do, as I said, with iron and folic acid. And sanitation also part of it, but there's also issues on weaning practices and again, diet diversity. The relative roles of those, I said I don't know, and I'm not so sure anybody else does, but if they do, they can volunteer later in the following session. But they're all factors to it, and part of it would be the diet of pregnant women. That's part of it.
My response to the question on social audit, and I have no doubt in my mind that social audit has got a very important role to play. But to then go on and say that social audit will by itself be a transformative intervention in the Indian sort of context, I have my doubts about it. I'm a great supporter of it. Because at the end of the day, what does social audit do? It sort of unpacks the problem. It bears naked the kind of deficits that exist. But for that to be acted upon, you need a state that is responsive to the results from that social audit. And if you need a state to respond to this, then it should hurt the state in a very constructive manner if these outcomes are not delivered by people who have to confront the electoral market in a once in 5 year basis. So there is, according to me, a fundamental disconnect, much less so, and I think our movement forward is rather encouraging, but there is this disconnect which is, I think, at the heart of some of the problems that we have, and that's why I made the suggestions that I did. As far as the question on, using social protection and, this whole thing on nutrition and the multiplicity of factors that will help move the nutrition problem in the right direction in India, I think my own sense is that sanitation has got a very, very big role to play in this. And our ability to deliver quality healthcare. And if you look at the government programming infrastructure on this, I mean, I ran National Rural Health Mission in Bihar for some time. And I know that the kind of resources that government put into the program, a lot of good work has happened. And again, now the sort of flagging off at the very highest level on Swachh Bharat, which is sort of framing the sanitation question as being really important, I think are very important things for India. But to translate this into real action on the ground that will help us see the results, it's a little more complex and difficult. Let me tell you just one reason why I think so. If you analyze the data on, I've done this for my own research, on the way money that Government of India gives to states, largely the centrally sponsored schemes framework, you will find that there's a statistically significant, not very, but enough to come to a conclusion, because number of states on which you can actually conduct the data and databases on this are limited. You will find that the poor states of India actually get less and they use less. In fact, the reason that they use less is one of the reasons why they get less. Now, as a program manager here sitting in Delhi, who's dispensing cash to states, I also have another problem, and that is that I need to spend the money I have. And when I need to spend money I have, I'm constantly, come November, December, I'm always reallocating money from the poorer states of India to the richer parts of India. And there's a systematic flow in this. The other problem that we have, and this we have found in NGNREGS, for example, and other social sector schemes, when we find that there is some sort of a delivery deficit in the program, the first response from Delhi is to actually stop funding to the state. Now, who suffers? It's the people who have to benefit from that. And typically, again, it is states which have poorer state capacity, are unable to manage this sort of complex information resources that have been put in play to get money out of Delhi. So the point that I'm making is that if we make a meaningful intervention on the health front and the sanitation front, and which is not, by the way, building toilets. You can have built toilets and not have it used, or you can have toilets which actually make the sanitation question much worse, despite it being fully used, because the way that waste is actually seeping into and polluting the drinking water in the nearby area. So there's a whole large number of questions. And that's why I made the argument that we have to make the Indian state vulnerable to questions of nutritional outcomes. And according to me, it's a good thing, because nutrition sits on top of the pyramid. It's like tiger in the sort of conservation space. If the tiger survives and thrives, it means that the entire conservation pyramid is healthy. And nutrition gives us that equivalent. And we just haven't mined it adequately and converted what is otherwise a science question to actually a political question.
We are running half an hour behind schedule, so I think let's break for coffee now, unless Manny has a couple more things. Okay, let's break for coffee now and meet back here in 10 minutes at 11:20. That would be great. Thank you so much for a wonderful beginning session.